Let's move on to the news.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North South American. All the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press.
Game news.
First up in game news, there's a game called Saint Noir, which is going to be coming out from a new publisher called X2 Games. The designers are Zai Ortiz and Nolan Bushnell. Nolan Bushnell, founder of Atari.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a familiar name.
Yeah. Way back when, founder of Atari. This game is kind of an interesting situation. The gimmick of it is that it is the first voice-acted board game that is designed for the Alexa.
Oh, sure. Okay. So you don't, it's like a total theater of the mind.
Yes, there are dozens of voice actors, 2,500 plus lines spoken in there. You're playing a hard-boiled detective. You're trying to solve a murder mystery. There's a cast of characters around you, and you will speak to Alexa to get Alexa to speak back, to get the characters to speak back to you, and so on and so forth. So you have an interaction thing. Interesting thing. Like I was like, at first I was like, oh, that's just a gimmick. So
is it an app you have to buy?
I don't think so. No, I think it is. I think you buy an actual. It's going to be an actual board game.
I understand.
It's going to be an actual board game that will be able to use Alexa for it. The interesting thing about it, though, is that I thought, okay, this is going to be something that's interesting, and then is quickly gone. But it is replayable. No two games are alike. The identity of the killer is randomized on each playthrough, which is interesting when you have pre-recorded things. How do you do that? How do you take pre-recorded snippets and change who the murderer is?
Well, I think the Alexa is the way, right? You take any of these kind of machined voices.
It's like choose your own adventure, right? It's just has some sort of randomization element.
I guess so, but in the construction of a mystery, you can't use the same snippets and tell a story in which somebody else is the murderer.
Yeah.
If you're supposed to be able to follow the breadcrumbs and figure it out.
I could imagine vocal synthesis could really take care of this. This is actually maybe a part where technological implementation could really actually do this thing.
Or it's just like the movie Clue, where it's the same story, but in the end there's a different killer, and they've set it up so that they all work.
Possibly, though the reason that works in the movie and wouldn't work in the game is that you want to actually be able to figure things out, and within that construction you can't possibly figure it out because they've baked in all three of these being valid.
Yeah.
Right. Which is...
Well, maybe it's not a good game. For me.
I don't know. There is, if you look up Saint Noir, ST period, Noire,
I'm looking at it.
Diner promo, there is a little video that they showed at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
That looks quite interesting.
I'm down.
So, take a peek.
Does this start to be video game, or does this start to be... I mean, even if it's not, in screen space.
I would say that it is the next step on the progression that Mansions of Madness did, where the app became a much bigger part of the board game experience. You're still playing the game on a board game, but the app is really directing and guiding and leading you along. I think this is the next step of that. The fact that it is an audio thing, or at least to a large degree an audio thing, I think helps me keep it in the board game realm. We'll see. We're going to have to see how it is. But all I'll say is that it's a brave new world, and I'm interested to see where it comes.
Absolutely.
Early adopter.
You know me. You know me.
Forefront. Tom.
This news is for Maddie.
What's up?
On Mars has a cooperative expansion that is coming out.
It's not for me. I'm
in
out.
2020. It is absolutely for you.
Because it's got a solo mode.
Well, it does, but it also is, I think this, if anything is going to turn you over into a cooperative player, I think this could be it. On Mars, the cooperative expansion is coming out in 2020. Vital Lacerda has come out with it. We don't know anything about it, except that I've heard that it is coming out in Q2.
We know that it is called On Mars Surviving Mars, and that it is teaming up with the Paradox video game of the same name, Surviving Mars. So it is sort of a collab between the board game On Mars and the Paradox video game. Paradox, known for Europa Universalis and Crusader Kings, and lots of great, very, very, very heavy. They are the Splotter of video game creators. So it's interesting to see their take on this. They both have the exact same theme.
Yes.
And so they're sort of like bringing those things together. That'll be interesting, I guess. I don't like cooperative games, but I like solo games. So maybe it'll be interesting.
I mean,
by the way, all cooperative games are solo games for me.
Well, there's the alpha player problem, and that's
not even it for me. I just don't. That's just not how I like to spend my time with other people.
Well,
I like to spend it that way alone, though.
Surviving Mars, you are playing against the game. The game is out to harm.
Sure, that's all
to harm
games,
you.
yeah.
And on Mars is not that way, right? The game isn't harming you in any way. You're simply, falling behind or falling ahead on the.
We did notice there are some strong co-opetitive elements to On Mars, just the base game, which we'll be talking about in our review.
A person with a builder strategy versus a person with a improvement strategy.
Well, no, I mean that you are you are working together while competing.
There's a lot of shared resource in terms of gameplay and space.
Yeah, you are incentivized to help the colony while helping yourself.
Exactly. There was an interesting article on Vice this week. Don't say that too often. Civilization and Strategy Games Progress Delusion. Gabriel Suarez wrote an article mostly about video games, but he basically talked about how awful 4X is as a theme and as an idea when you look at it from a cultural imperialism standpoint looking today. Yeah, and he kind of goes into it. 4X stands for explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. And he's like, why are you playing a game? Why are you playing a game that is 4X when that is the thing? And he kind of goes somewhere interesting.
That's why most of them are in space.
Yeah, these days. So they didn't used to be. He goes into an interesting place with it, which is, I guess his point is that at the end of all of these games, or toward the end of all these games, he mentions that a lot of people never finish these games. It's you play it, but you don't actually finish it. That every civilization that gets to the end of these games becomes almost exactly like every other civilization that gets to the end of these games. It is sort of funneling you. The game funnels you to monoculture. To our system is the best system, and that's the one that's going to win the game to a large extent.
Right.
Which I thought was really interesting. And he was talking about how there is a new game and new games that are coming out that are starting to challenge that are starting
Spirit
to be
Island, obviously.
Sure. He's talking about a video game, I think. Let me see if I can find the...
if I can interject while you,
sure,
while
please.
Look, I adore 4X games, and it makes me feel dirty sometimes. Straight up. I mean, like, I love the sense of discovery. I like it when the game itself has kind of a sense of, okay, this isn't something you've seen before, and it kind of strategically or tactically changes the way you play. Like, you have certain strategy ideas, and then tactically something comes up, and it's like the Through the Ages problem, and I'll talk about this later, but like I really like these games that have a twist or turn that is, somewhat programmatic, and you kind of know where it's going. But then, all too often that monoculture that happens, the monolithic, you've won because you have military science and like eugenics dominance is dirty, dirty, dirty.
Yes. Well, there was, for me, I think Eurogames brought out the idea of, what about 3X? What if we get rid of exterminate? What if you can expand, you can explore, you can,
exploit.
You can exploit and all that sort of stuff, which itself is, is still colonialism, and it still has.
There's so many games that use colonialism as their backdrop. I mean, it is a huge part of the hobby.
Let's create a new 4X.
Alexander,
explain, exsanguinate,
exciting,
exacto knife.
Okay.
And I don't know what the fourth X.
Exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
Exchange of ideas.
Armani exchange.
There's an upcoming game called Humankind by Amplitude that he's saying that is aggressively going to break the 4X conventions. The goal is no longer to win history. As you move through history, you change civilizations, right? Because in truth, no civilization lasts forever, right? The longest lasting civilization, it's a good question as to what that is. It depends how you define civilization, I guess, for the Chinese Empire. But I would say that the Eastern Roman Empire
had a long time.
Lasted a very, very, very long time. But still, in comparison to the length of a Civ game in terms of history, it doesn't get anywhere near as long as that.
A lot of these games also project into the future, right? And then just the kind of even clip of history makes this stuff tough.
Exhale, explode.
Are you just looking up
Exists.
X words?
I think live, love,
And exercise.
live, love, learn. That's all I use.
Exhale, exhume, explode,
Yeah.
and exchange.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my 4X.
I'm still against exchange. I'm just
Damn.
Listen,
Exhaust.
Alexander Pfister in 2019 put out a game of colonial exploitation in the Caribbean. You know, Maracaibo is a game that has issues in this area. Matt loves it, so he doesn't have a problem with that at all.
I still think there's room to utilize history to.
uncharacteristically untrue.
There's still room to utilize history to teach important lessons that need to be there, because we can't just ignore our historical past. We have to directly confront it, and game space is a wonderful place to do that. It's been shown again and again.
If it does, yeah. If it does. No. Listen, Jennifer and I reviewed Maracaibo, and, you know, we talked about it in those terms, and we asked the question. We didn't really answer the question. It was more the question is raised. A game that deals with an era that was rife with slavery and doesn't talk about it and doesn't mention it.
It's mentioned in the rules and explain and not explained, but it's mentioned in the sense that he brings up that he's aware that it is something that is not being dealt with in that sense. It's not completely.
I get it. I don't think that absolves anybody.
I'm not saying it does in the slightest. I'm just
Right,
saying
right.
It's not fair to say that it is completely ignored. He at least puts a flag on the fact that it is ignored.
That's an interesting. It's a stance. It's the stance.
That's a dance.
There is a like a 8-page long BGG thread about this that has many different points of view on it. Jennifer Schlichtenberg as well is on that thread with some interesting points if anybody wants to read it. Lots of people chimed in on this.
I'm not condemning it. I'm not damning it. I'm just saying that we brought up the question: is
It would be immoral not
just,
to bring up
what
the
Alfred
question.
just said is a very interesting point, which is in a game you can confront some of these things. There's a way to do it and get something positive out of that by sidestepping it, by saying I'm not going to address that. Are you getting rid of that opportunity? And by doing so, are you whitewashing it? I don't know. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that it isn't.
It's not for us to say either way.
I guess that's true.
It's 3 white dudes.
I do enjoy when it's confronted in game space, and that'll be hopefully some really wonderful game space that'll be evolving in the future. As we talked about 4X changing,
Sure.
I think there's lots of room.
Sure.
And in the last bit of board game news, we're going to talk about a win for the little guy. An Abbotsford woman. Do you know where Abbotsford is?
Little woman, not little guy. And I'm not going to say little either, because that sounds awful. A woman.
An Abbotsford woman. Abbotsford is a little town outside of Vancouver. Won a legal battle on the People's Court with a real piece of work. There is a guy that is sort of I guess you'd call him a Kickstarter predator of sorts, a person that...
I'm going to put the People's Court music on for you if you want. There you go.
Thank you.
It's such a catchy theme. It really is a good theme.
It's really good.
I should have aspired to this
I don't
when
want
I
our
wrote
episode
the
to get pulled.
Kelsey Delois thought she had the great game. She is suing the publisher, Golden Bell Studios, for $500. Mark Goldner is the founder and CEO of Golden Bell Studios. People that have been on Kickstarter for a while.
They're not very liked.
I would say
I'd say they're hated.
Yeah. I would say that they are somewhere in the realm of Pol Pot in terms of popularity on Kickstarter.
That's not far off.
Takes games, takes money, sends contracts that are basically saying, give me half of the copyright or I can't even publish this game, which, as anybody knows, is wow, what a load of nonsense. Promises the moon and does nothing with it. It's one of the weird. I always find it weird when there is a scam that has no scam to it. When there is a person that is
Just being crappy for the sake of being crappy.
well, yeah, that doesn't make any money at it. You know what I mean? There's not even any money to be made here. None of the games that this person has been involved with have done anything. My favorite part of this story, you can look it up. Look up Abbotsford Woman People's Court board game. My favorite part is that after the People's Court, the judge on the People's Court not only gave the woman the $500, but she said, you get your game back. You have the rights to your game. And the guy's like, you can't do that. And sure enough, People's Court wrote back later and said, you're right, we can't do that. So that part of the judgment is void. And then they said to the woman, they said, any court, any day, just submit it. The guy basically violated the terms of the agreement, and you will have the game back in any court in the land in a heartbeat, in a single second.
Cool.
And his response was, hey, I'm in law school, I know the law. That was his was his
I think he's playing the People's Court music backwards.
He's playing the new expansion for People's Court. People's Jerk.
People's Jerk, indeed.
So you're in law school and you're engaged in, you have thousands of complaints for your business practices. People's Court calls you up and says, we want you to go on camera for this. And you say, absolutely.
Sounds good.
No problem. Who is not going to see it my way?
Some people love just a bit of promotion, no matter how it's come.
True. We have a president that won like that.
I will say, look this up, and it's absolutely a delightful story. I think you'll really enjoy it, get a real kick out of it. That's all we got.
I have one last piece. Tom, have you played the game Rococo?
Yes.
Is it a good game?
No,
to you?
I liked it. I thought it was okay.
Well, it's been famously out of print for a long time and fetching hundreds of dollars on the aftermarket right now. I've always wanted to play it, and Eagle Griffin Games, who is the publisher of the game, will be reviewing today, and many other beautiful games by Vital Lacerda, has a deluxe edition, of course, with art by Ian O'Toole. The comes on Kickstarter January 22nd. Wow, that is a gorgeous cover.
Super pretty.
Super pretty. January 22nd, coming to Kickstarter. New edition. Matthias Kramer, famously out of print game, much beloved by many. I'm excited to finally be able to get my hands on it at an affordable price. Just letting you know to put in your calendars, January 22nd, Rococo, Eagle Griffin Games.
Folks, that was the news.